This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest!
Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Aaron McCarty comes back with Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! A goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
What's up, everybody? Oh, man. False start. What's up, everybody? It's another episode of the Motor City Sports Rant. Sorry for that mistake, but I am Jason Jarvie. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvie the King. Sitting across from me, as always, maybe I can get his name right, the phone, the doc, John Macaroon. How's it going?
And you can't teach that!
Listen, Jason, just because we're recording in the morning doesn't mean you can start off flubbing and shit.
Man, I literally...
What was that like? You just flubbed it. You're like...
It was a false start.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I feel like Jeff Backus right now.
It's all good, man. Don't worry about it. We are recording this Tuesday morning, bright and early here at the Sterling Heights Studios. Everything's going good, looking good. Besides the Tigers, kind of feel kind of a renewed spirit of like passion for sports, just coming off of the signing at Fanatic U with Jared Saltalamacchia. It's nice to see how athletes interact with the young kids, the fans out there, and guess what I did? I was man
Were you
about...
a fanboy?
No, I was man about town. So there was a line out there, and the way they did it was they had all the fans that attended outside the store, and then they'd bring in 5 at a time to kind of go in and get the signing, take a picture. So me and Vito went out to Brighton, and we got to talk to a couple fans and some people that were tweeting me that were like, oh, I'm sorry I missed the contest. I'm sorry I was not able to win and get up front. And they tweeted me like, hey, I'm in line. So we went up, said hello, got some audio, just asked people like, hey, what are you doing? Have you ever listened to the podcast? Have you ever, what are you going to get signed today? And Vito was like, dang, you seem like a kind of a shy guy, but today you were just like, hello, we got an email list signed up, started. So I have my nephew there, so it's kind of like showing off a little bit, like, hey, just go do it. And so that's for me kind of what I wanted to do with this project is that outside my day-to-day routines, I'm more of a mild-mannered guy, but to do something different, you got to kind of go outside your comfort zone. So podcasting, getting out, meeting the people, it was very fun. And it's fun to do this podcast with you. I'm very happy. I'm looking forward to rapping some sports.
Well, that is really cool. What was the thing that people had most for him to sign?
Based on price, because it's a little bit expensive, about $30 for anything larger like a glove or anything like that. So most people brought a baseball, and that was $25. I'm kind of learning a little bit how the signing situation works in terms of like how these companies set up these athlete signings. So it's very interesting. But everyone there, and what I really liked is, I tend to be a fanatic, and I was talking to a winner.
Just like Fanatic U.
Yes, I tend to be a fanatic in that sometimes I get so riled up and I want to win so bad that sometimes I just forget that there are people who love the Tigers no matter what. I got to interview 3 people, and they were just like, you know what? They got swept by Cleveland, but hey, we're fans of baseball. We're fans of the Tigers. No matter what, we're going to support them, and hey, we just hope that they play a little better. And I'm sitting there, I think when the audio comes out, I ask all of them, are you guys sticking with the Tigers even though they came off of a sweep? And they're all like, yes, listen, no matter what, we support our team. And it kind of it made me feel good. You know what? Being a fan of sports, you got to remember that, hey, it's a sport, it's a form of entertainment, it's something to get behind. But even though there are struggles, and there are a lot of struggles with our Detroit teams, it was just nice to see positive, happy faces because of the nice weather. People were just in a great mood. The line was, calm and casual, and people were willing to talk to me. So it was a very enjoyable experience, courtesy of Fanatic U, and it was nice for the network to be able to give 2 people VIP experiences to get in there and not have to wait in line, and to allow them to have a chance to just chat with Jared Saltalamacchia with a little bit more privacy. So it was cool. It was a very nice event. I appreciate it.
Now, do you think you said that these Tiger fans they're going to stick with the team no matter what? And I know you've been on my case for the past couple of weeks of just being on the Tiger train and believing. And I'm back off that train, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But on the other hand, I kind of feel like I'm that way with the Lions. Now, my opinion was that I think it's okay for you to have one of those teams in your sports town. I think if you are like that for all of the sports teams, you're going to go crazy. If you're like that for
Become like
the
a
Red
doc.
Wings, the Pistons, the Tigers, the Lions, I mean, and if you're a Spartan fan for that matter, that would be the hardest thing ever, to be always positive.
You know what it is? The way I look at it, and I had this conversation with one of the VIP winners, and I told her, I said, listen, fan stands for fanatic, and what that means is, listen, at the time you want to win so bad, you want to be part of something bigger than yourself. You want your team that you root for to have success. So in that momentary time, maybe like for an hour or two during the game, and maybe an hour or two after, you just go crazy. But then in the hours leading up to the game and just talking to people, you kind of can get back down to that normal level. It's kind of like getting into the zone. In the zone of game time, pre-game, post-game, you get to that fanatic zone where you're like, dang it, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? Micro-analyzing everything. And then after the game, like now, as we're talking, we can be a little bit more hopeful with the Tigers, with our teams, with the Red Wings, which we'll talk about very quickly. But that's what being a fan is all about, is getting crazy, throwing your beer down, going, why did they do that? Why did Osmus do this? I can't believe Cabrera grounded out to another inning-ending double play. Why did he do that? What's going on with this team? It's because you want them to win so bad that you get into the action. That's how I am. But yes, you're absolutely right. If you're that way 365 days a year, you're going to have blood pressure issues, no doubt about it.
So we'll start out with the Detroit Red Wings. They had the NHL draft over the weekend, and one of the things the main thing we were talking about last week with the Red Wings was Pavel Datsyuk retiring, and now he's left us with this gigantic salary cap hit, which Ken Holland was saying that it's more than likely that he's not going to be able to move it, but come first day of the draft, it's poof, it's gone. We don't have this $7.5 million cap hit anymore. And I think it's time now to just appreciate what Datsyuk did and move on.
You see that man over there who's pimp walking? That's Kenny Holland, man. He's probably talking to everybody like this.
Bada boom! Realest guys in the room! How you doing?
How surprised were you that Kenny Holland was actually able to get on the phone, talk to Phoenix, and make this move?
I was very surprised that he was able to do it, and he really didn't give up a ton. He only, in all talks, it was thought that he'd have to give up some prospect that we have, whether it's Pulkkinen, whether it's Thomas Yurko, but all he really had to do was, move down in the draft 4 spots, because he swapped first round picks, and we even picked up a guy. So it was really surprising. I mean, I guess I can't say that I was just like flabbergasted by it, because I think it had to be done. I think if he didn't make that move, people would have been clamoring for him to step down, or for Illich to move on, to get some new blood in here.
What I was surprised with was the reaction we got on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. Like, you had a bunch of people who were Kenny Holland supporters kind of waiting in the wings for him to do something, and they came out when he made the move like, see, he's a good GM. This is a guy that can lead this team. Why is everybody bashing him? The reason why that Kenny Holland got a lot of grief was he has signed a lot of contracts that haven't come through. And there have been a couple off seasons when he had some money to play with, and he brought in guys like Tutu. He brought in guys like Alfredson that were, a little bit further along and really didn't help the squad get to where they needed to go. So I can look at both sides of it and say Kenny Holland, when he had the money to spend, just because you have funds and you spend it wisely doesn't mean you don't get credit for it. He is a very valuable GM. But in the recent past now, in the last 7 years, he hasn't been up to snuff. He hasn't done exactly the right things. But you have to also remember, it's not that easy to do.
Yeah, and we're going to have to see what he does with this money now. Is he going to waste it? Is he going to pull a Joe Dumars and go out and panic sign Ben Gordon and Charlie V? Or is he actually going to be smart and sign guys that we need on this team? Now, obviously, we have some draftees now. We're likely not going to see, this isn't like Dylan Larkin, where the kid is going to come up in year 1. These are guys who we're not going to see for probably somewhere in the midst of 2 to 5 years. So the top pick, Dennis Cholowski, defenseman. He played in the BCHL last year. 6 feet. He's still got to put some weight on. Only 18 years old, and everyone's saying that he's a great skating defenseman. And so obviously on the high end that you would hope that he's gonna pan out would be you hope that he can even come close to Nick Lidstrom. You hear a skating defenseman, and that's who I think of is Nick Lidstrom. That's the best ever.
Just based on the draft, did you kind of get a sense that they were kind of looking for a little bit of an upgrade to that defense? You saw
totally.
You saw the Ericssons. You saw a lot of breakdowns last year when they didn't really need to happen.
Defense and toughness is what they went to address in the first and with the second picks. With the second pick, they went and got Giovanni Smith, another 18-year-old, played in the OHL, and they're saying this kid is tough, and he's going to go in and he's going to get you some penalty minutes. He's going to fight. Somebody actually reported, to quote, so abrasive he would have graded on Mother Teresa.
Ooh. Do you buy into or even consider the fact that the Red Wings have never really had a African-American player on the ice? They've drafted a few, but they've never kind of panned out and got onto the NHL roster. Do you think that potentially if this gentleman comes up, plays solid defense, that he kind of would embody what Detroit's all about? Tough, gritty, maybe may go out there and punch Sidney Crosby in the face and get that crowd going. I know in this day's NHL, the enforcer, his role has, really diminished quite a bit. You don't see too many Darren McCartys. You don't see too many guys out there with the sole intention of fighting because, one, head traumas. Two, they're getting called for penalties left and right. And so what happens is the enforcers are guys that are going in the box, which inevitably leads to power plays, and it hurts your team. So there has to be a healthy balance of a guy with talent that can do other things as well. You can't just be an enforcer anymore in this day's NHL. I don't think. And
that's what this is a guy who's really going to take probably 3 to 5 years to even start to sniff the club. Only 18 years old. He's a winger. And even though he scored 23 goals in 65 games last season, it's going to take time. He's going to have to show that he can beat out, all the other guys who are already looking for a roster spot on the Red Wings. Is he going to? He's not going to beat out Anthony Mantha. He's not going to beat out Andreas Athanasiou right now. It's going to take time, but when he does get up here, he's gonna draw attention, and he might even be like a fan favorite, like Darren McCarty. He wasn't the greatest skater, he wasn't the biggest goal scorer, but people loved him for what he did.
You know what I like about Detroit and Sterling Heights? Within 5 minutes of him getting drafted, I seen a couple fellas out there with the Smith Red Wing jersey out there, been like, "Hey, $12, get your Smith jersey." I'm like, "Really? That fast?" They're like, "Yeah, man, he's gonna come to town and he's gonna, drop some people." I think that's what right now, novice fans out there in town are like, oh, we got maybe a potential enforcer. And, I think what's tough with hockey is that old school people that watched hockey, people that grew up in, like me, that watched hockey in the 70s, 80s, 90s, you saw fights. You saw kind of, a situation where the stars were protected, where if they got checked or mistreated, then you had a guy out there that would go out there and handle his business. Nowadays, it's just a little bit softer, and they've kind of slowly but surely eroded fighting from the game. And in a sport where they're kind of struggling with gaining attention, drawing ratings, not being on national television, why not go back to your roots? Just allow it a little bit. Maybe not so much in terms of like fighting, but a little bit more hard checking, a little bit more, of the game that we all grew up. Because listen, when you sign up to play hockey and you sign up to play football, there's an expectation that it's going to be a little bit rough and tumble. Hockey is a checking league, but it just seems like right now the sport has gone away of like just, hey, let's just try to get as many goals as possible, be entertaining and free-flowing, where I like a little bit of checking. I like a little bit of fisticuffs. What gets a game going when you're down 1-0 and you're not playing good? A guy going out there laying people out. What is it in town now that people erupt for? You got Cronwald. I mean, literally, that one tweet was probably the most retweeted thing I've ever posted on our Twitter page. Was in the 2015 postseason. Cronwald laid a dude out, and I just typed in caps, "You got Cronwald." Erupted. People loved it, and it's just something that I think I miss in the sport of hockey.
Yeah, and I don't think we're ever going to go back to that.
Never going back,
with
huh?
this day, with concussions, with CTE, you're not going to see that anymore. And even you see the players, as you said earlier, when guys are constantly going into the penalty box, they're hurting their teams. Teams are too good nowadays that they're going to capitalize on power play opportunities. So you see teams adapting that they're not. Cronwall's definitely a different player. He's been handicapped essentially. That's what he's been known for. And how often last season did we see? Well, Cronwall was hurt a bunch last season, but how often did we see him run a guy into the boards? We didn't see it a ton, and unfortunately, it's just the way the sport has gone.
Yeah, I agree. And it's something that you go, man, I'm a fan of hockey. I just wish more people would get into it. I wish it was something where maybe the leadership, maybe of guys like Gary Bettman, would kind of do some more things to promote the game. I never asked you, what do you think about expansion? They're going now into Las Vegas. You see it being a problem, or do you see it potentially helping the league?
I'm not sure if it's great, because I'd actually be fine if all those teams in the South left. The Arizona Coyotes and I don't know. It's hard to say because I think a couple of years ago you could have pointed to a bunch of teams that weren't really doing good. They weren't getting draw. But now you see teams like the Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning, the San Jose Sharks, the LA Kings. All those guys, all those teams are actually doing pretty good right now. So I think Las Vegas, it's definitely smart for the NHL that they're the first franchise to get in on that market. And as much as people doubt that how of the success of that franchise, I think it's gonna draw. I think I read that season ticket demand is already through the roof right now. And it's even if you are just a tourist destination, you come into Vegas in November or February, it's something you can do. It's if you're done partying and you want to go just watch a hockey game, especially for the big hockey cities like Detroit, Chicago. If you're just in town and your team happens to be playing them, how cool is that?
No, exactly. I think it's very smart of them to go into Las Vegas, but I just think that maybe, going to Las Vegas is great, but yeah, I think there are too many teams in the NHL. They should maybe look to contract, spread the talent around, because, you kind of are seeing a situation where you kind of have the haves and the have-nots, and if you look at the books, a lot of these NHL teams aren't really drawing a profit. That's the most important thing, is that you want these arenas to stay full. You want the engagement to stay there. And if you're not producing a consistent winner, if you're not having the great talent, then you're going to have issues. There aren't too many, max guys down there in Florida.
If you're just going on business alone, then yeah, you could probably cut out 8 teams and you'd be fine. And you'd probably be fiscally better. All those teams would do better. But I wouldn't say that teams are overmatched just for the same reasons. The Florida Panthers were nobodies and they were competing last year. Tampa Bay Lightning they're in the contention year in, year out now. The LA Kings, the one outlier really is the Arizona Coyotes, that
whatever they've done they've struggled.
It's failed. But there is a lot of parity in hockey. The Red Wings, a team that was always towards the top, they've been struggling to get into the playoffs year in, year out. We see teams with like Nashville and St. Louis, just have resurgences. So I think if you're going strictly on money and trying to run a business, then the NHL they do have a lot of issues. But if you're going on quality of teams and quality of play, I think the NHL is just as high, if not one of the highest in the 4 major sports. They have really good playoffs.
You know what I'm excited to see? The first time the Red Wings show up in Vegas to play on the road, you're going to see a sea of red. A lot of people from Detroit are going to maybe make a weekend of it. If it's a weekend game, it's something where Detroit fans travel well, especially in Arizona. You always see a lot of red in these opposing arenas. So it'll be nice to see. I'm interested to see how it's going to play out.
They're totally going to travel. It's going to be a sea of red because it isn't just Arizona. They'll make the trip up. It's not that far of a trip to Vegas. All the people in LA, it's a 4-hour drive, but a quick hour flight, and definitely the Detroit people are gonna make a bachelor party out of it. How awesome would that be?
Now, in that first game, will Steven Stamkos be dressing for the Red Wings on the road versus Las Vegas?
Well, he's definitely
prime target number one.
He is a number one, the top of the list that you want to go after. And I think the only downside of Steven Stamkos right now is how much money you're going to have to pay him. You're going to have to give that
10
guy
mil plus
a ton of money
for a lot of years.
Now, I think he's 27, 28?
No, he's like 25, 26.
The guy is young. He could be if everything pans out, he's going to be your franchise for the next 6 to 8 years. So if you get him, it's a game changer. You don't have Datsuk anymore. Zetterberg is in the twilight of his career. And Stamkos, you essentially get your next captain already. And you get to roll out with Steven Stamkos, Dylan Larkin,
Abdelkader,
Nyquist, and Tatar, if they're still here. I think you immediately jump up into the middle parts of the Eastern Conference.
So you say if they sign Steven Stamkos, that it automatically legitimizes the Red Wings and moves them up maybe from being like a 6 to 8 seed, potentially into a top 4 seed, and a team that could contend for the Stanley Cup as built? Because, I don't know, can one guy really affect a team that much? I mean, this is a guy also, too, that we got to worry about that has missed some time in the last couple of seasons, hasn't been on the ice. If you're going to give a guy $10 million plus for 6 to 7 years and go all the way with it, you're not scared at all that you're potentially looking at a Franzen situation, a guy that might have health problems and not really live up to the expectations? Because if they sign him for that money, you're looking at expectations of 40 to 50 goals every year and at least one cup minimum.
And I think that's at the top end of it. Yeah, that's what you got to hope for. And you can't go into
you hope for, but I'm saying, do you think he'll deliver? They make that signing. Does Steven Stamkos bring what we need to get the level of success that we're accustomed to?
I think he brings what we need. I'm not sure if he's bringing 40 to 50 goals every single year. He may have one of those every couple years, but he's going to be that top line guy. He's going to be your main scorer. Now, on the other side, everybody wants Steven Stamkos right now. And I think there are other guys out there you could bring in. It's not going to give you the same impact that Stamkos would, but I think it may even be better, because maybe where you spend all that money on a Steven Stamkos, maybe you're able to spend a little bit less, get a slightly less quality player, but you're actually able to get more players. Maybe, what do you think, Milan Lucic? I'm not sure. Do you think Boston are they going to sign him back?
That's the talk, but see, that's the thing, is that a lot of fans in Hockey Town are kind of like really excited that the moves that were made by Kenny Holland were made to position themselves to get Steven Stamkos. And if they don't, then I think a lot of fans are going to be disappointed because they don't know the other free agents that are out there. This Red Wing team can have success, but I think right now, and like we talked about earlier in the podcast, the Red Wing fans aren't interested anymore in just getting to the postseason. They're not even interested anymore in winning rounds. The fans now have waited and not gotten out of the early rounds of the postseason for so many years that right now their expectation is sign Stamkos, win the cup. So I think that's why they would be very disappointed if they don't get him, because they would think, well, you know what? We don't get Stamkos, we don't get that guy, then it's just going to be another year in the postseason, win a round or two, and then be exited.
Yeah, it's possible. But I think people need to... Is this as bad of a situation like the Parise and what was the other guy? Ryan Smith?
Was it Suter?
Suter. You had Parise and Suter, who we just assumed.
We targeted. We
We assumed that they were going to just come to the Detroit because we're the Red Wings. And I think that really was a disaster. You look at something, you try to compare that to something. I kind of compare that to when Rich Rod came to Michigan and he was assuming Terrell Pryor was going to come in and be his starting quarterback for Michigan. And when that didn't happen, I think that completely messed up that entire situation. And I think the same kind of thing happened with Parise and Suter. You assumed that those guys were just going to sign with the Wings, and it didn't happen. And it kind of set us back. Because, who did we actually go out and sign that year?
Was that the Alfredson year? I'm not exactly sure, but yeah.
It might have been. And that Alfredson did not work out at all. None of our free agent signings have worked out because there haven't been a ton of guys to go out and sign. And we've just been standing pat with what we have.
See, now, that's the thing. That's the tough part is that you have a lot of factors in this Steven Stamkos pursuit. In that you get this guy, now you got a marquee guy that you can sell these big tickets for in the new stadium. Okay, now we got a young guy. We got a guy that has talent. He's a guy that you would consider to be box office. Now we can market him into the new stadium, no problem. Now, if you don't get him, now you're going to have to draw upon really some creative marketing and some success on the ice. So you definitely need a little bit of improvement on defense. You need guys that can effectively play on the power play and score and show up in the postseason and be, frontline guys that can put the puck in the net in crunch time. We think that guys like Tatar, Nyquist are those guys, but last year was really eye-opening in that, whoa, they took a step back. Now, how much more are you going to count on these young guys? Are you going to count on Larkin, Athanasiou, Mantha? Are you going to count on these young guys in the future to be guys that you say are the cornerstone of the franchise? Hey, they could do it, but you have to actually, what the Wings have to do is then say, okay, we are going to make a commitment to play young guys no matter what, and whatever happens, happens. But what we're getting is a hodgepodge of okay, we're going to go with a mix of veterans and young guys, and you're getting bounced in the first round. So go with it. Go with young guys. And if you make a couple moves outside of Stamkos, then you better bring in guys that can at least contribute to scoring and show a little grit as well.
And yeah, the biggest free agents after him, you have Milan Lucic, as I said before. There's Troy Brouwer, Andrew Ladd, Kyle Okposo, and David Backes, who none of those guys are really
not sexy.
It isn't, because Stamkos is he's
sexy A+,
he's a franchise. He's been on the cover of an NHL EA Sports game. None of those other guys have been on covers.
No,
but I think those are guys who you could bring in and help start to solidify that team.
Are we underrating the gentleman that we picked up from San Jose? I believe he was a scorer. He was a prolific scorer, I believe, in the minors. He was drafted by San Jose, but there were some contract issues, and they went out and traded, I think, a third-round pick to go get him. I believe this is a guy I think they're also counting on potentially to come in and contribute pretty soon, too.
I think that's really just a wait and see right now. Somebody who isn't a proven commodity that we've seen perform in the NHL, I don't think you can predict what they're going to do. I think it's possible he could come in and immediately contest for a starting position, but I don't see he's probably not higher than a third or
fourth liner at this point in time.
Yeah.
Okay, still developmental player, but still, I think it was a move that a lot of people were like, okay, not a bad move by Kenny Holland. And was a move that kind of opened a lot of people's eyes because he was a guy that San Jose drafted, I think, rather highly. They just couldn't work out a deal, and he's now going to be a Red Wing and another guy potentially that could, peek into the lineup and contribute. Now, a couple quick points with the Red Wings. If Stamkos signs, buzz around town is, what number he wears?
91.
Do you allow Mr. Stamkos come into the Red Wing organization where number 91, because I don't believe too many have worn it since Mr. Fedorov has left?
Yeah. Honestly, I would let him wear whatever number he wants.
Really?
Fedorov, he was a great Red Wing, but
Not jersey retirement worthy?
We haven't done it yet. You know, the important, and this gets onto another topic of jersey retiring. You know, if you retire Fedorov, you know, why aren't you retiring 14 for Brendan Shanahan? Why aren't we retiring, 25 for Darren McCarty? I think these are guys, they're all important to the team. And there's no doubt Fedorov is one of the best Red Wings of all time.
They don't win those cups without him. What are you talking about, man? I think that Sergei Fedorov is a little bit underrated, and not as respected. He's very respected for his talent, and now that he's in the Hall of Fame, he's elevated himself to a higher level. But the way in which his contract was worked out when he had those issues when he left really kind of stung the organization, stung the fan base. But you got to look at it like this. He was Yzerman's Scottie Pippen. You don't have Sergei Fedorov.
Is Scottie Pippen's number retired at the United?
It better be. I mean, I'm going to have to go check it out after we're done today.
Pippen's not retired.
What?
I'm going to look that up right now. Is Scottie Pippen's number retired for Chicago?
Yeah, I think that it should be. I mean, this is a guy that, you know, I know a lot of people remember him for the issues with the migraines when the Pistons series around town, but this is a guy that elevated himself and did some good things even after Jordan left. Now, he wasn't a guy that could lead a team by himself. He wasn't an A-plus prime player, but I believe he was a top 100 NBA player of all time. He had a lot of skills.
It is retired.
Yeah, but
33 is retired.
Of course it was, dude.
Very
Come on.
surprising.
What? Surprising? I would be surprised if it wasn't. He was. Listen, you got to remember when Jordan and the reason why now I can talk so eloquently about this was I was at the gym when they played the 30 for 30 Bad Boy. I've watched it like 6 times. Every time you watch it, it's better every time I watch it. But those first early series, they targeted Jordan, and Scottie Pippen wasn't able to, you know, make the adjustments at the time. But in the year after, you know, the Pistons won the second title, Scottie Pippen emerged. He became a better player. He became more mentally tough. He wasn't so flustered when Lambeer would bump him and such. When they would try to play rough with him, he still adjusted and made some key baskets. Scottie Pippen, you got to have a little bit more respect for Mr. Pippen. He wasn't just, listen, I know Jordan is so awesome, but Pippen was, you know, a great number 2, a great Robin.
I get it. And they also won 6 championships. Fedorov won 2 championships. And I'm looking at a list of numbers. You want to look at guys who may over-retire numbers, or maybe they just had so many players, the Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
So right now, you can have 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, and then it skips to 20, and then it goes to 26 through 30. They have so many numbers retired.
Well, dude, they won so many championships in a row, you had to show some respect. But you would give Stamkos number 91, no problem. You would have no issue with letting him do his thing as number 91. I think it'd be interesting to see another player wear 91, because I'm not really certain anybody has even put on number 91 for the Red Wings. But you're a nice guy. You'll say, hey, whatever you like, Mr. Stamkos, we'll roll out the red carpet for you. Come do your thing. Just score, baby. Just help us.
I think they'll probably talk to him. Let's say, I don't want to jinx anything, but if he does come here, they'll probably talk to him, say, hey, what number do you want to wear? And, you know, the kid, he grew up a Red Wings fan, so he probably knew Sergei Fedorov. If anything, he probably wears 91 because of Sergei Fedorov. And maybe he preempts it and he doesn't wear 91.
So Sergei's in the Hall of Fame. Another gentleman who now is going to be a topic of conversation every June is Chris Osgood, a gentleman that a lot of people can debate about whether he was the product of a great system, whether they just put Hall of Fame talent in front of him, or whether he was a really significant contributing player to those Cup teams. So the Hall of Fame vote came down for the NHL, and Chris Osgood, unfortunately, did not qualify again in 2016 to be in the Hall of Fame. What do you think? Where do you weigh in on the debate? I feel like we've talked about this before, but in my opinion, I think Chris Osgood deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. This is a guy that, you know, just because you have talent around you doesn't mean that you're going to automatically have success. You have to be a goaltender that plays well in tough situations. And a lot of people forget, Chris Osgood made a lot of key saves in a lot of moments in those tough series versus Colorado, in those Cup games. So Chris Osgood is a guy that I believe should be in the Hall of Fame. And when you look at his numbers, they match up pretty good to guys that have qualified.
Yeah, Chris Osgood, he was probably one of my favorite players growing up.
Why is he so disrespected?
I don't. I think because he always seemed to be the second guy. He always he was young, coming in, and those early years, it was kind of looked at as somebody else got the job done. It was Mike Vernon or Dominic Hasek, and he has all the stats, but I think it's because he never really had amazing seasons. He never had seasons like what we've seen with Carey Price or even with Dominic Hasek, where you have the Vezina Trophy winner on your team. He wasn't a Vezina Trophy guy, but if you're looking for a goalie who can you can depend on, then Chris Osgood was that guy. And you're looking at you mentioned his stats.
Doesn't he have over 400 wins?
He has. You want to? Let me see. How many
Pull
wins
up the
does he have?
stats.
He's 401.
Yeah, that's a Martha Key marker.
Yeah, he's 11th overall in wins all time.
See, I think where the issue comes in, and I think it's the age-old adage that a lot of people who consider Hall of Famers, in that if you have to have a little bit of a debate, he's not a Hall of Famer. Some people really believe that if he's not a clear-cut Patrick Waugh, if he's not a clear-cut goaltender that stood on his head, that was able to do magical things, or was just a guy that never gave up any goals, then...
Who has a better goals against average, Chris Osgood or Patrick Waugh?
Chris Osgood.
He does. Patrick Waugh is 2.54, Osgood 2.49.
Who won the fight in that in that second matchup? It wasn't as good as Vernon Raw won.
No,
he got punched out. So,
it depends on how you judge fights. If you go on pure punches landed, I think you have to give it to Waugh, which I hate to give him any credit for.
Right.
But I give it to Osgood because he's the guy who came on top of him.
Yeah, see, and I think a lot of people, when they look at that battle in the second year, and that he tried so hard to, win the respect of the, fans and things like that, he wanted to be respected. He was a gritty competitor. And you got to remember, this was a dude that was able to leave the organization, come back, and also have success too. So I think eventually...
He's going to be a Hall of Famer.
He'll be a Hall of Famer. It just might take some time, right?
Because and he's also a guy who hasn't just disappeared from the public's eye. I think he's an amazing commentator for the Wings, and I think he'll be in the Hall of Fame, whether it's next year, whether it's in a couple years.
Yeah, stop snubbing our fellas. Come on now, put them in the Hall of Fame. Disrespect all the way around.
But well, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the Tigers and
also a little Game of Thrones action.
We will talk a little Game of Thrones, which was bananas on Sunday. But more about the misery of the Tigers and John. I'm blaming him for everything. But you're listening to the Motor City Sports Rant on DetroitSportsPodcast.com.
And the reason, Jason, that we're able to put on these fine podcasts week in, week out is because of our sponsors. And one of our great sponsors, Fanatic U, has definitely helped us to grow, and they've been such a strong supporter of this fine project and network that we always give thanks and prop up those who support us. FanaticU.com is Detroit Sports' official outfitter and the official outfitter of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. If you're going to buy anything at all to support your Detroit teams, if you're a fan of the Red Wings, Pistons, Lions, Tigers, Michigan State, there's one outfitter you have to check out, Fanatic U. Go visit FanaticU.com, pick up great gear. The customer service is amazing, and show your support for the Detroit teams by going to Detroit Sports official outfitter, FanaticU.com.
Motor City Sports Rant, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. It's all John's fault. It's all John's fault. He wanted me to be excited about the Detroit Tigers, and now, where are we? I told you that they were a 500 team. Last week they were a 500 team. This week they're a 500 team.
This is bad.
There's only a slight difference between this week and last week, though. Last week they were only 4.5 games back from the top of the AL Central. And after a 3-game sweep at the hands of the Cleveland Indians once again, we are now 7 games back.
Jason, listen, you have a situation where, you see a team like the Tigers, and they're streaky, obviously. They had a great series versus the Mariners, and you thought that they could carry it over into the Cleveland series. But the key to that series in Cleveland was that first game. Jordan Zimmerman was considered the ace of the staff, and when he goes out there and gets rocked like that, and then you got a situation where the confidence, I think, dipped a little bit. And right now, the Tigers just need to get one victory versus the Indians, and then everything will be righted. Because right now, it's psychological. Cleveland's in their heads. Cleveland is a strong team. Great pitching, solid key hitting, a lot of role players that are contributing. But they're not like the Cubs. They're not like the best team in the world. So once the Tigers get their heads on straight and feel the confidence to defeat the Indians, I think it'll be okay. Now,
it wasn't just Zimmerman.
No.
And you trot out Sanchez, which is the biggest mistake in the world. The guy has finally find his role in the bullpen, and then you bring him out. You put him up against the top team in the AL Central. Horrible decision. I'm not sure whose move that was. It's probably Osmus, but I get that they're trying to figure out the back end of their rotation. And then Verlander.
Oh,
come on, man. 4 home runs.
It's
1 inning.
It's funny when, you look at Fox Sports Detroit. They're great. I really enjoy their coverage a lot. But they were so much pushing that agenda of his tweet after his last performance against Cleveland, where he's like, I will be dominant again. And then they did something that was interesting in that he kind of foreshadowed what was going to happen, and that they asked him a question like, how do you handle days like this, like Sunday when it's so hot and muggy? And he's like, I just got to avoid those long innings where, like, if you get into an inning where you pitch 25, 30 pitches, it can take a lot out of you. And so what happened? He had an awful 4th inning, and then it just compounded with an inning that we have never seen in baseball for quite a long time. 4 home runs in 1 inning. If you go back and go to Deadspin or go to places where you can replay all 4, the Napoli home run is one where I don't think you're ever going to hear a louder crack of the bat. It was like crack, and it was like, are you serious?
Man, that guy kills the Tigers.
It's unbelievable. 4 home runs in 1 inning, and Saltalamacchia was catching. He was just like, Verlander left some pitches up, and it was a situation where he didn't have his best stuff. He was mixing in some, off-speed stuff, and Cleveland mashed the hell out of it. It's not a series where you walk away from it going, oh.
And it just so happens to be against the top team in the AL Central.
Now we're 7 games back, but you're off the bandwagon, huh? You are deflated. You feel like, you know what? I don't think I can roll with support anymore.
I'm not on the crazy train, because that's what you're on. It's not a bandwagon. It was a crazy train.
Why?
Because
if
everyone saw that this is a 500 team. They go up and down. It's a roller coaster.
Yes. But when they're on, what do you see? You see a team that can mash the hell out of the baseball, that can get outs. This is a team, I think, maybe that if they look at it, they need to add one more starter. Maybe, just maybe, the bullpen can be patchwork like this. But what they really, really can, maybe look to add, another hitter. Because if you can get another bat in that lineup, you've seen what they can do when they crush the baseball. If this team gets out to a lead of 3-0, 4-0, then this is a team that can maybe pitch from ahead much better than pitching from behind.
We have another bat already. JD Martinez.
He's going to come back, but add another bat as well. Maybe you just add,
Every team needs another pitcher and another hitter.
But maybe the Tigers might be in a position to do that.
This is why you're crazy.
They might have 1 or 2 aging veterans you could move. Or
Who?
you could.
Who are you going to move?
I've been on the train to move Kinsler, or I've been on the train maybe to move V-Mart.
So you move arguably your 2 best hitters right now to try and get another bat and another pitcher.
Not maybe both of them.Maybe just you open the phone lines for one of them, see what you can get.
Addition by subtraction is clearly what you're saying right now.
Well, what I'm saying is, listen, there's a couple ways of looking at it. When they make the move, because they're buying, they're not going to sell at $200 million. Okay, that's against my proposal. But let's look at reality of what could happen if they buy. Okay, what are they going to look to add? If they need to buy another pitcher. Okay. So that means they're looking to then add, strength in that starting rotation 3 through 5.
Correct.
Okay? So what do you have to give up? You have to give up something.
You got to give up a good player.
You got to give up a good player. So then maybe they potentially give up maybe Nick C. Maybe they give up a guy maybe give up a Steven Moya. You never know who the Tigers are willing to, move. But
so you're clearly going to win now still. That you're going to give up your best young pieces to try and win a World Series now.
My thesis and my philosophy is sell. Blow it all up. It's done.
You're trying to talk yourself into this Tigers team being good. I'm going to make it my mission to get you off of this crazy train.
There is potential. Not a lot, but there is potential for this team to be good because, remember, they're 500. So let's look at the other half of the games that they won. The games that they won, they matched the baseball. They pitched well. They didn't make stupid mistakes. So this is a ball club that has things in place.
The 4-game sweep happened because, it is a bad team. But I'm not gonna argue that because you can only play who you have on the schedule. But you also had a ton of help from your bullpen. And when your starters are giving up 4 home runs in 1 inning,
it's tough to win, yeah.
And your offense isn't doing anything.
Yeah. How
are you going to win that?
When you get guys on base and Miguel Cabrera's up to bat and he ends, the inning with a double play, it's never a good look. And he's been up and down. I get it. V-Mart has been helping the team. Kinsler's been helping the team. But, yeah, the rest of the lineup, Cleveland made them look pretty soft, huh?
I just don't think there's any move or any couple of moves that you can make without mortgaging your future. And really, even if you do mortgage the future, I'm not sure if this team has what it takes
to
get to the playoffs and actually have success.
All right, so you look at some of the teams that are bottom feeding, you would say, are struggling mightily. A lot of talk, a lot of speculation that the Yankees might be sellers. So who do they got on their team that they may be looking to get? They're not going to trade Betances. They're going to keep him around because he's got a lot of potential. So they got Andrew Miller and they got Aroldis Chapman. Okay?
Give me Aroldis Chapman.
Okay.
For a bag of balls. And then
Aroldis Chapman for a bag of balls? They'll take
that? If you give me Aroldis Chapman for a bag of balls from the Tigers, then I'd say that the Tigers have a shot.
Okay,
You're not going to get him for a bag of balls, though.
V-Mart, and maybe, let's say, Jimenez or a prospect in the minors for Chapman and Miller. You do that deal? V-Mart.
You're not going to get both of those guys. But if you're saying that you're going to get both of those guys, which isn't going to happen, sure, I would do that.
Okay, so maybe then you just... Okay, who else? Let's make it a little bit fair. V-Mart and who else?
If you go get you're getting 2 arms for the bullpen.
Yeah, to shore up pitching. That way you don't have to have all that offense. Maybe you win games 2-1 or 2-0, and you try to shorten the game to a 6-inning game, 7-inning game. Get through 7 innings. Be up 2-0, couple runs, and get to the bullpen that's strengthened with those 2 guys. Maybe you change the philosophy up real quickly.
You would need to do a complete overhaul.
No.
You'd have to tell your starters you're only going 6 innings.
Would you do
in all the money that you're paying these guys? Justin Verlander, Jordan Zimmerman.
Would you do Kinsler, V-Mart for Chapman and Miller? 2 offensive bats for 2 pitchers.
No, I would not give up Kinsler and V-Mart. I give up one of those guys
and a prospect
who is years away for both of those guys. That's the only way I do that. And I hate to say it, but Ausmus isn't he wouldn't be able to figure that out. Because really what you'd have to do, if you somehow manage to finagle Aroldis Chapman and Andrew Miller under your team, you would have to become the Kansas City Royals, where you have 1 ace on your team, and then you're essentially hoping that your bullpen takes care of the rest. I don't think Ausmus can do that.
So you're thinking, and I it's not that hard to disagree with you, is that, listen, it is what it is. It's roughly a 500 team. They could add pieces, take away pieces, and really any formula to try to fix this team is a team that right now just doesn't look to be a team that's going to have much upside.
Yeah, they're a 500 team.
Kaboom! You think it's done? It's done. If you go a $200 million payroll and you don't get to the postseason, I know a lot of people are holding on so tight to this notion, just get to the wild card because we know you can't beat Cleveland. Listen, what does getting to the wild card do? We want, with a $200 million payroll, again, this Detroit Tigers team is looking to get farther in the postseason and win a World Series. That's the goal. With $200 million payroll, you're not just looking to, hey, let's just get into the wild card and see what happens. No, because if you get into the wild card, let's say you win that game. Fine. You're going to go into a series versus Baltimore and think you're going to win. It's going to be a repeat of what happened the last time. You're going to get dominated. There's no team in the, right now in the postseason mix that you favor against. Come on now. So you have to make moves to really look at how does this team go from mediocre to awesome. Pitching, I think that's what usually gets you there.
Sounds like you're coming off the train. It looks like you open up the door.
I open the door, I'm looking.
And you're looking for, the train to slow down just a little bit more.
Exactly.
You're looking for a nice soft patch of grass that you can jump on.
You know what's going to happen? They're going to go out and just destroy Miami the next couple games. And
Two games against Miami won't do anything.
Okay, then what's after that,
You have 2 games against Miami. Then you go to, what is TBR? Is it the Blue Jays?
Tampa Bay Rays.
Tampa Bay Rays.
On the road?
Oh, man.
Or home?
They're going to win again.
Yeah.
God damn it.
They're back to winning, right? I told you. But you know what the problem is? You know who Tuesday's starter is in the comeback game against the
P-Man.
Pelfrey. And this is, look at how craptastic this formula is. Pelfrey is forced to come in after 3 days rest, pitches 39 innings. I think it was Friday. Now he's got to come back on Tuesday and pitch. So it's no guarantee. You know what? My nephew's so cute. He's so adorable. 6 years old. And he was like, I'm like, hey, nephew, what's going on? What do you think about the series versus the Marlins? You know what the first words were? Stanton's going to hit a bomb. And I said, why? He goes, because Pelfrey's pitching.
Yeah.
Well, there's 6. And the way he said it was so awesome. Stanton's going to hit a bomb.
Let's see. So right now, Tigers are 38-38.
38-38.
And
the last 3 podcasts, around 500.
Going up to the next time we record this podcast,
they'll be 500.
I'm going to actually predict, because they have these 2 games against Miami.
Split, yeah.
And then they have 4 games against the Tampa Bay Rays.
Okay, that's it. They split.
They're going to be
3-1, maybe.
They're going to go 4-2
okay.
over this next patch.
There
They'll
go.
be 42-40.
There you go.
And you're going to be back on the bandwagon. It's going to be so much harder for me to pull you off, because right after that series, you know who they have? They had 3 games at Cleveland.
Oh.
And then they had 4 games at Toronto. And then you had the All-Star break.
Oh, boy.
And then, you know who you got when you come back? 3 games against the Royals.
Boy, so, if you're on the train of blowing it up, you might have to kind of wish for some losing for the Tigers. Maybe if they lose a bunch of games.
No, I'm going to be safely. I'm going to be Kermit the Frog. I'm going to be sipping my tea. I'll be like LeBron James, because I know what's going to happen.
You know what's going down. It's to be right around, just enough to keep Osmus in the managerial spot, just enough to be mediocre. So, but you're thinking that no matter what's done, go out through this schedule. I'm surprised by a lot of people who are tweeting out that this is still a team that looks like it's a playoff team as is. I was surprised to read some of those tweets. I'm like, this is not a postseason team as is. My only hope is that there's a trade deadline and some move will be made. So there'll be some shift in play, whether it be up, down. I don't think this is a 500 team as is if they make a couple moves.
I think the reason that they say that they're still a playoff team is because they've seen what's happened in the Central. You're not expecting Cleveland to be 15 games over 500. They're going to go Cleveland at some point, or at least that's what all those people are probably expecting.
And plus, they might buy, and they might have to give up some of those pieces that are on the roster right now to get a couple more talent. See, the thing you worry about is if Miller goes to KC or Chapman goes to Cleveland, and the other guys that are closer start buying, then you're going to have a problem because, that's the competition, and you have to kind of keep up with the Joneses. But yeah, right now, we're nowhere near the class that we need to be, especially with Cleveland. 7 games out in a 3-game set. You could have been as close as
one game out. So Cleveland, they're gonna go down at some point. I honestly don't believe that they're gonna stay on this hot streak. And if they do, then they're likely gonna win the World Series, because I think the dominoes are falling in Cleveland.
Oh boy, here we go.
It's gonna be the city of champions.
The city of champions. Okay, we'll revisit that in 1 week. We'll see where this Tiger team is. But it's still fun to watch. My nephew went to the 3 games versus Seattle. The game I watched was enjoyable. Justin Verlander got into a pitching duel, and we came back. Aviles got some key hits. But you know what was fascinating? A key kind of microcosm of the season. So, I think it's the 4th home run, Chisenhall hits a high fly ball out there. Aviles is covering it. There's this overweight fan, just kind of stands there. And I think it was the most meekly attempt to try to catch a foul ball, or the most meekly attempt to try to catch a home run I've ever seen. He's this overweight guy just standing there, kind of just puts out his hat and doesn't move. The ball, it doesn't move to try to, get in the range to catch the ball, and it bounces off of him and flies back. Now, the Tigers tried to, say that it was interference, but the guy didn't move. He just kind of stood there like, and it was fascinating to see that big dude didn't even get the ball. And everyone was looking at him like, really? What are you going to do?
You don't want a home run from the opposing team.
No, but he at least had his glove out there, or he had his hat out there to try to get it.
Well, yeah, you don't want to get beamed by it, though.
Yeah, but if you look at it again, if you look at the replay, he just kind of stands there, and that's not the basically, if you're going to do that, you're likely to get clunked in the head.
Have you ever caught a home run ball?
Not live in a game, no, but you're not going to believe what happened. And my nephew, I'm going to, he's 6, so you can't, tongue lash him. But so we get to the game on last Tuesday early, and I'm like, nephew, this is the perfect spot. 3 rows behind the bullpen, center, right there. He's like, no, uncle, I want to go in the front. I want to go in the front. I want to see. I want to be right in the front. So literally, we were 3 rows, perfect. Got my glove ready. He's got his glove ready. We go right down 3 rows. A couple guys go up. They're hitting it. They're left-handed. They're going to the other side. Next guy comes up, crack. And everyone's like, oh, look out, look out, look out. And it was really one of the first times I tried to catch a ball. And I'm like, no, come on. It's literally in our wheelhouse. Literally. But I just noticed, okay, I think it's going over my head. So, boom, I turn around. 3 rows back, the exact spot I was. I literally would have just put my hand up. The ball would have entered my glove with no effort. I looked at the nephew. I'm like, you see? I was right. I had the spot. There's a spot 3 to 5 rows back in the bullpen. That's the spot you go to. Try to get a foul ball. I had my chance. I could have been a contender.
You brought your mitt to the game?
Yeah, because we went an hour and a half early.
I shake my head at you.
Listen, I took the kid.
Be a man and catch it with your hand.
Oh, no, I would have definitely been that guy then that would have hit my hand and flew 50 rows back. But no, if you're going to be a fan out there, you got to at least make a motion to catch the ball and do something. This guy didn't do nothing.
You know how I want to catch a home run ball?
How do you want to catch it?
I want to have my beer, and I want to catch the ball in the beer, and I want to chug it.
There you go.
That would be the perfect scenario to catch a home run ball. That's the only way I'd really want to.
Speaking of perfect scenarios, everyone on Twitter went apeshit for the finale of Game of Thrones. I have no idea what was going on, but you can always know if people are liking Game of Thrones because my Facebook wall, Twitter will just be a buzz with like, that's how you do an ending. Oh my God. Oh, this was awesome. This was the greatest thing I've ever seen. Oh, what a finale. So you got 120 seconds. What the hell happened, and was it a great finale?
It was an insane ending. I mean, you want to talk about ending like a season finale. It's really hit on all levels. There wasn't really a huge cliffhanger where sometimes if there's a big enough cliffhanger on a season finale, it can almost detract from it. You look at what The Walking Dead did, where they finished with a point of view of a dude, the Negan, the new bad guy, killing whoever is in front of him, and we have to wait until the next season comes out to know who he actually killed. It resolved a lot of things, and it confirmed probably the biggest fan theory that's been around since the show even came out, since really the books started being published. And that theory was finally confirmed, which I think even just that is crazy that it happened, because a lot of times you see when the fans come out and they actually figure out a really interesting way, or they actually figure out what's going to happen in the book. A lot of times you'll see people change it. I'm showing my nerdiness here, but you go back to Harry Potter. Going into the last book, everybody assumed that Harry Potter dies, and that would have been a better ending. But then you see J.K. Rowling, she switched it up. He didn't die. Spoiler alert. Sorry. Going a little bit, recently, that you've seen the Dark Knight trilogy, and I think a fitting ending to that, The Dark Knight Rises, would have been Bruce Wayne dying. It would have completed, his rise, becoming Batman, overcoming everything, and then he passes on the mantle to Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. And really, I think you could improve that movie by cutting out that scene where you have Alfred go and see that Bruce Wayne's still alive, If you didn't have that, I think that would have been a way better story, because the whole thing about Batman is that he's just a symbol. And this is a long way to get to it, but the way Game of Thrones ended, they finally revealed the fan theory that everyone is actually right about it. And it was bananas. And that's only on the fan theory. Probably the first, just like the episode before, the first like 15-20 minutes, and I was thinking about it on the way here of a way to compare it, and I compare it to the ending of Godfather 1. You know, when Michael Corleone is becoming
everybody, yep.
He's becoming Godfather, and he just kills everybody. It was nuts. And you think if you're a really diehard fan and you kind of read a lot of things, you can almost kind of see what was happening. And I was seeing all this stuff happen. I'm like, dude, this is gonna be nuts. This is gonna be nuts, and it happened. And it was amazing.
A+, huh? Sounds like.
It was a really good ending to the season.
We'll actually have a take on it. You know what it is?
That's fine. It's okay.
No, I'm just easy. I'm messing with you. No, you got excited. I'm happy that all you hashtag GOT fans got what you expected, because, yeah, a lot of finales don't live up to the hype. The one that just gets me is the Sopranos finale. The way they ended that show was horrific. You just were like, what? No, that is not how you end a show like The Sopranos. You end it with him getting blown up or whacked, and you cut to end scene black. But the way they did it was horrible, and there's a long litany of finales where
you draw your own conclusion, and that's, you have both kind of fans. Yeah, I think there was a lot of outrage for that. But then I think you draw your own conclusion. Is he dead? Is he not dead?
So then next season...
It's kind of like Inception. You've seen Inception.
Yep.
Is he still dreaming, or is he not dreaming?
So next season's Game of Thrones premiere will be off the chains. You're looking forward to it?
From what I've been hearing is there's only really going to be 2 seasons left.
Okay.
I think there's only 2 books left to be written.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they've gone into what's already hasn't been published yet, and I think it's gonna be nuts. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens, because there's now 2 big enemies really to see what's gonna happen, and I'm just gonna be excited for the ride.
See, I give you 120 seconds. You took 250. But it's okay.
Sorry.
For Game of Thrones, we'll make it happen. Thank you. Happy Tuesday, Jason. Follow him at Jarvie the King. Definitely check out his podcast, The Fantasy Nerds. Comes out every Friday, presented by the Fan Up Network.
For all you fantasy football heads.
It's a great podcast. I've been taking my notes. You've been going through the divisions mightily. And what is upcoming this week?
This week I will be diving into the AFC East. I'll have some more NFL news. What's going on? What's happening? Maybe, I think, anytime we could hear on the Brady appeal, and it's gonna be a big thing. You know, is he gonna play or is he not gonna play those first 4 games? And we're getting closer to training camp and preseason games, and I think we're gonna start really diving into draft strategies.
Well, Jason, knowing that we recorded this at a different time, you did a great job. I appreciate it very much so. Another edition of the Motor City Sports Rant in the books. Yes, sir.
Later.
Okay, nice, idiot. F you. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.